Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Catel. Welcome to Basic Nigerian History. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the Empire of Songhai. Last episode we spoke about Mali, and this episode we're going to be talking about the Empire of Songhai. So, the Songhai Empire. The TARIKH al-SUDAN is the most important primary source for the Songhai Empire. The empire dominated the western Sahel of Africa in the 15th and the 16th century. It should be noted that at the same time these empires, Mali and Songhai, existed around the area, Nigeria also had its own empires like Kanem Bono Empire, Hausa Kingdom, and so on. But we're not here to talk about them. Let's talk about the Songhai Empire. The Songhai state existed from the 11th century in a place called Gao. By the late 13th century, Gao had grown into an important trade center. So Mali conquered it. But eventually, in the late 14th century, the Mali Empire lost dominance of Gao. If you want to know how, watch the episodes about the Mali Empire. As the power of the Mali Empire continued to decrease, Sonny Ali, who was the leader of the Songhai, took back control of Gao and began surpassing Mali in area, power, wealth, and absorbing most of the old Mali Empire. In 1464, Sonny Ali had established Gao as the capital of the empire. Gao is now in modern Mali. The Songhai went on to conquer Timbuktu and Djenné, which are both in modern Mali. They had a few notable rulers like Sonny Ali, Sonny Baru, Askia Muhammad, also known as Askia the Great, and Askia Musa. Now, Sonny Ali was a great ruler, like I said, but his son, Sonny Baru, wasn't as good as his father, and he was eventually overthrown by Ali's general, Muhammad Toyin, also known as the first Askia, also known as Askia Muhammad. Muhammad Toyin was another great ruler, making Songhai even better and greater. Some even say he instituted economic and governmental reforms unparalleled in West Africa. The Empire of Songhai developed political customs similar to that in Baghdad and the Arab world, such as decapitating defeated pretenders to the throne and bringing them to the Askia as a sign of devotion. Now, even though the empire was heavily influenced by the Arab world and the spread of Islam, they also had their own structured traditions. The Songhai people had their own officials. They had the Jinakoi, who was the commander of the vanguard. They had the Dendefari, who was the governor of one of the most important provinces. They had the Demakoi, they had the Kadi, they had the sheriffs, they had the Barakoi, who were all born of noble blood, and they had someone called the Gorisi Donke. I'm not sure what he did, but they had him. Now, only the Jinakoi, who was the commander of the vanguard, could sit on the rock during an audience with the king and covered himself in flour instead of dust like the rest of the people. Only the Dendefari, who was the governor of one of the most important provinces in the empire, could speak frankly to the king without any fear. Only the Demakoi could enter the palace compound on horseback. Only the Kadi could employ servants of a king. He was entitled to a mat whenever he visited. Only the sheriff could sit next to the Askia during a hearing, and a eunuch would stand to his left. The Askia would rise only for scholars or pilgrims, and no one could question the king during an audience except his Guresi Donke. Askias ate only with sheriffs, scholars, and their children, and their meals were eaten sitting on a mat around the common platter. And only the Barakois, which were councillors, all born of noble blood, unlike the Askias, who were all born of concubines, could veto a decision. But the Askias could choose whether to heed the veto or not. Another interesting thing is that the Askias had this object among the royal insignia, the kindling wood. Now, the kindling wood was supposed to represent the emblem from the first fire lit by the first family that ever occupied the land. The Askias passed this insignia down amongst generations, but historians are starting to suggest that they didn't begin it, as they weren't the masters of the soil. All Askias were sons of concubines, as we know, and all Barakwais were born of noble blood. This leads historians to think that maybe the Barakwais were the original masters of the soil, whom the Askias stole the emblem from. Another theory that would support this is that the Barakwai would accompany the Askias on a pilgrimage and take advantage of the presence of the Kaaba to bind the Askias to an oath. So, for example, they say something like, "Promise me that henceforth you will abide by my counsel, and whence the right of veto, blah blah blah," and then the Askia would respond by saying, "I promise you." So this just goes to show you how connected the Songhai was to the Arab world. Also, it is noted that Askia Mohammed bought a mansion in the city of Medina for the pilgrims going from the Sudan to Medina to stay in. And apparently, it cost 100,000 gold pieces just to maintain the place. Askia Mohammed was eventually overthrown by his son, Askia Musa, in 1528. During the reign of Askia Musa, internal conflicts and a series of coups caused immense instability and led the empire to decline rapidly. There was, however, a brief period of stability and military success with Askia Dawood. Askia Dawood was even able to keep the Moroccan Sultan, Ahmed Al-Mansur, at bay. Al-Mansur had been demanding taxes from the salt mine from Songhai, but Askia Dawood managed to content him with a gift of gold instead. After Dawood's death, another long struggle for power caused a civil war which further weakened the Songhai Empire. And as his descendants schemed and plotted for the throne, Al-Mansur was like, man, I need more money, because Morocco had used the majority of his wealth to repel the Portuguese invasion and defeat them. So he was like, yo, Songhai people, remember when I said I wanted some taxes from the salt mine and you gave me gold? I need money, oh, I need money. After the Songhai civil war, the Moroccan Al-Mansur sent an army to conquer Songhai, and Songhai was too weak to do anything about it. The Moroccans had guns and they massacred the remaining of the Songhai army. So by 1956 or 1951, we're not really sure when the Songhai Empire collapsed. In conclusion, the Songhai was another rich and powerful West African empire. They rose to prominence over the fall of the Mali Empire, and they continue to have an international presence in the world, especially in the Muslim world. Like other African empires we've seen, they fell mainly due to infighting and attacks from neighboring peoples. Next episode, we're going to learn about the Kanem Borno Empire. Stay tuned. Oh yes, guys, Dr. Catel here. We appreciate everything you're doing for us. If you like what we're doing and you want to continue supporting us, please just visit our Patreon at www.patreon.com/Ronu Creative. And then you can pledge however much you're feeling to pledge, and make sure you share it with people. And, anything you do will help us continue to grow. I wanted to mention that. I appreciate you guys. Love you.